Hello, everyone, and welcome to Office Hours, where we've been answering your media and tech-related production questions every single day since March 25th of 2020. Jason Bache in Albuquerque, New Mexico, is our reader today. Jason, what have we got for our first question?
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York asks, I'm purchasing a Mac Mini and want to rack mount it in a road case that will obviously be moving around venues. What is the best one I can get to protect the computer?
Mickey McAchore has some suggestions for you. Mickey?
So yeah, for something like this, the pretty much standard go-to would be the chassis from Sonnet Technology. If you got a 2024 Mac Mini, they have one for that holds up to 3 Macs. And if you just got one, that means you would be purchasing a second one because one is none. So might as well get the one that can hold 3 of them. If you got an older form factor Mac Mini, they also have other options that can hold the Mac Mini itself plus an expansion, PCIe expansion as well. I believe they also have one that can hold up to 2 Mac Minis of the older form factor in a single rack unit.
I somehow, after you said that, want a T-shirt that's all black that says in nice white letters on the front, "One is none." It is incredibly zen. No one will know what it means, and I'll feel very cool wearing it. Let's go on to the next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington asks, first Nikon Red cameras and includes a link.
Courtney Gooden.
I was just browsing the link here. It looks nice. It looks kind of like just a point-and-shoot Micro Four Thirds, but it's a full frame. And sorry about the audio if you're hearing it. It does have a 32-bit float audio recording, 6K. It has stabilization built in. I think it's optical stabilization. Oh, sorry, let me get rid of this up here. Go away. Records red code RAW. So thankfully, since Nikon bought Red, they can now have access to the red code RAW. Compact build. Looks like it's good for, look, you can mount it to a helmet and put it on your head and look like a real geek. It has a Z mount. There's the 32-bit floating.
That looked like a neck problem waiting to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, the ZR can do it all. All right. I'm glad we finally have a camera that can do it all. Because mounted on a drone, I didn't see a notice in there to see if it is a rolling shutter or a global shutter. That is the big question. Hopefully it's a global shutter, but especially if they're going to be mounting it on a drone. But since it has some type of internal image stabilization, maybe not. So I'll have to read further to find out.
Let's take a look at our next question.
Mike Edwards in Brooklyn, New York asks, morning, everyone. Panel, what are your thoughts on the new LiveU LU900Q? And he includes the link.
I haven't done any looking at it or researching it because I think this is brand new. I'm not at all surprised that we're starting to see the flood of new equipment kind of presaging the fact that IBC in Amsterdam takes place in just a few days. So I think manufacturers are trying to get a little jump on the news. So I think we're going to see a flurry of new hardware and software and everything else related to production and things like this. No one's raised a hand yet, so I don't think anybody on this particular panel has had a chance to look at the specs and figure out. LiveU is one of the rock performers in the live remote contribution and REMI space. So they have good engineering, and we're all hopeful. I don't know what the features of this one are based on where it goes. I would imagine since it's up to 900, it's probably more expensive and does more than the ones before it, but that's just a guess on my part. We know more than that. No more than that. So, Mike, if you have any information, pop it to us, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the days to come as people get a hold of units and give them in the field tests. Next question.
From the QR code, Jack Levinson in Seattle says, what does the panel think about using a laptop headphone jack versus an audio interface to capture audio for a live event, Zoom caller or BGM videos, etc.?
We have a lot of hands raised on this one, so I'm going to start with Chris Gillen in Chicago. Chris.
Hey, yeah, do not do that. You have a cheap headphone amp. Okay, it's not It's not anything but a really cheap headphone amp. It is not an interface. Your headphones and a microphone are essentially opposites of each other. And yes, you can make some like signal get through in some of these rudimentary applications, but it's absolutely the worst way to do it. You want to have an interface. You want the correct tool for the job. Never do that, ever. That's my answer.
Jeff Cohen.
Well, there is an exception to that. And if you intend to use one of these little super cute tiny mics to do your interview, let me see. Yeah, so if you, where'd he go? Here we go. So if you want to be this guy holding this mic, then it's appropriate to just plug it right into the little jack.
Where did they get the Bob Vila clone? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. The vest. I'm surprised I didn't dye the mic orange to meet the vest. Anyway.
Yeah. So, yes, just to reiterate, that's an okay analog jack. Of course, the whole point of going with an interface is everything except for the hopefully better mic or other equipment that you're using in your audio chain. Then the rest is digital from that point forward.
Okay, we're having fun, but we're going to go to Mickey, who will tell us some actual information, I suspect. Mickey?
Yeah, totally agree with Chris. Little mini jack on a laptop. That's an unbound connection, so never want that. In most laptops, the inputs would be at microphone level. You don't want that. You want line level. And also, all the circuitry in there, the op amps, the analog to digital conversion, and also the entire circuitry as a whole is cheap electronics. That's what's in a consumer laptop design. It's noisy, so expect your recordings to be noisy if you use that. So, as Chris said, no, don't do that.
Didn't some of the laptops have a combination of a regular earphone but also an SPDIF connection? Do I remember that from the past? And I don't know if that really
earlier MacBooks had
there may
that,
have
but
been
that,
one Sony laptop that did that.
Okay, so that port may have some utility.
Only,
yeah. Oh, it was output only, so that's not a solution. Okay, Courtney, dive in.
I concur with my fellow audiophiles there and say that no, don't use it because these days almost all laptops have a single TRRS 3.5 millimeter input, which serves as both an input and an output. So both of your inputs and your outputs are sharing that same little mini plug. So that's wrong. Here's the pinout for those of you that are interested. Left, right. The tip is left. The ring is right. The third part is common, and the microphone input is where normally the shield would be connected there on the very end of that connector. So also be forewarned that there's 5 volts DC power coming out of that mic connection to power an electret condenser. So you don't ever want to go into that audio input unless you're just using a cheap electret condenser microphone as its input, because that 5 volts will create noise anytime there's any schmutz or anything between that connector and the plug. And anytime you turn it, it'll go.
All right. It's been a pretty much consensus here. We seldom reach consensus on a lot of things, but try to at all possible. This is an emergency audio port only. In serious emergency, stay away from it. Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, I've recorded audio as part of a YouTube video at a noisy South by Southwest trade show. How can I clean it up to reduce background noise, make the voice sound closer and more natural? Include free and paid tools.
Jeff Cohen's going to start us off with some thoughts. Jeff?
Yeah, well, the free tools, I would say, are really not all that prevalent and available because this is a trickier thing. If you have happen to have DaVinci Resolve Studio version, not the free version, again, because AI, you have voice isolation, and voice isolation is pretty doggone good. You can play with the settings and tune it. And there's actually another version of this. I find voice isolation will work better. Of course, as you're going to hear, the more you take out, the more you're destroying the quality of the audio, but that's what you're working with, so that's where you are. So play with that. And now there is also, Guy Cochran mentioned, I think it was last week, but Adobe's Audio Enhance, which is part of their Adobe podcast. Let me see. We can tell me if you guys are hearing this.
Team. I want to tell you about some really exciting new things
difference.
that we're working on. So we're introducing Enhanced Speech V2. It's a big update to Enhanced Speech that removes background.
Now, of course, any of these demos can be faked, right? But it is really that good. You do get a little bit of time with a free Adobe account, so you can try it at least, and you're limited to how much you can upload individual files as well as overall time. But if you find it works well, if you're in need, it's you can get it as part of even Adobe and Adobe Express account. You get more time, so it's a pretty good deal if you're going to use it. Also, I've mentioned Riverside. If you're already using that, I'm not sure I would pay for an account just for this, but if you have other needs for it, just recently, over the past couple months only, really, they've gone from pretty bad to really good for this. Again, you're destroying the quality, but if you have almost noisy audio that you can't even really hear the dialogue, this will do a really good job. Likewise, Descript has their version, Studio Sound, same thing. So if you just want a really fast, like literally 1 or 2 clicks and let it do its thing, and all of a sudden you have perfectly usable dialogue, any of these 4 things can do it really, really fast without sitting there and doing all the settings and dials.
Your Chris Sheldon is up next. Sheldon?
Yeah, I would say it really depends on what your skill level is. The top solution for this in pro audio editing is absolutely going to be RX, Isotope RX. There's spectral editors. There's all kinds of stuff you can do, but it all really gets incredibly complicated pretty quickly. I would say if you're not really in-depth audio-wise, I would look at Waves Z-Noise. This is like a 2-button couple click. You can literally play some audio that is just the noisy background. You can make that plugin learn that frequency shape, and it will just kind of, as you push a fader up, it will kind of just dip it down for you. And it's a couple controls, and it's really simple, and it's probably $29. So that's a good spot to start.
I'm going to gently ascend a little soapbox here. And well, Mickey's here, so maybe Mickey will do the same thing. Mickey, dive in.
Yeah, I would try, if it's really sounding bad, depending on what the content is, I would try to avoid using it at all. If it's just an intro or something, cut a bunch of B-roll together, record nice clean VO, slap it on top. Don't try to polish a piece of poop turd. Yeah.
It's very politely done.
Yeah, don't try to, no matter what you do, it would be a compromise. So if there is a way around cutting it through and putting VO on top, if it's not something like an interview where you cannot bring the person back, then I would just think of another solution for the speech that's there, but use VO instead, perhaps. If it is something like an interview, I think it would be highly disrespectful to the person you're interviewing for you to put them in a bad light by putting their interview out with horrible audio if it's that bad. So, yeah, that would be that would be very disrespectful in my opinion.
Yeah, the soapbox I was going to climb on is that one of the tricks that I learned early in my career is I tried when I was very young and just starting out to use a lot of auto stuff, right? I would use auto gain control and stuff like that. And it was only through messing up that I learned that I really had to get better at recording sound. And my worry about this is that the young people coming up may think, oh, well, I've got that in Audition, so I won't worry about what I record in the field, and then I'll just slap a filter like this on at the back end, and I'll always be fine. And you might be for a while, but then you might get into that situation where it's not fine, and then you won't know how to fix it. So most of us around here say, if you got to use a tool like this to save something, give it a shot, and you may get good results out of it. But please don't learn to rely on these auto tools as a substitute for getting out in the field and learning how to take the steps you need to get clean audio in field recordings. Jeff, you want to come back in and say something?
Yeah, just to, maybe slide my soapbox next to yours and just sprinkle in a little bit of the real world for this question, which is, this is for a YouTube video, a one and done interview in a noisy South by Southwest trade show. Okay, so first of all, 100% agree that the priority should always be to first do everything you can to get a clean recording. That being said, absolute respect, Chris does albums where you have to and should be striving for perfect. And Mickey is working on the highest tier of movies and production and prime time and TV. And I'm sure there's credits that I'm not giving Mickey. But for a YouTube video, and also your time to make a YouTube video profitable, you can't spend the time that some of these other projects can, given their budget. You can only be profitable at doing things like YouTube videos or other things by doing it quickly. And as I've mentioned before, for better or for worse, unfortunately, the bar is really, really horrible. So if you get with any of the tools any of us have mentioned, you're going to get absolutely probably better audio than almost any other interview from there if you actually take the time to even do any processing to it. So don't be afraid to slum around with some of the other tools to just quickly get some usable audio for a YouTube video interview.
Mickey, you get the last word.
Yeah, I don't have a soapbox, so I got my Pelican. I'm just going to stand on
There you
it.
go. That's the pros working soapbox right there.
Yeah, I think, yes, there are different levels of production, different allocations for budget of time and money. But I think if people spent a third of the time and money they spend on visuals, sound is easy. People just need to put time into it. Get a simple Sennheiser MD46 or Shure SM58, $100 microphone. That's easy.
Okay, we've passed this around a lot, but I think this is audio day, and so the big message goes out. Sound is always important, and the time you spend learning about sound will always pay you off throughout your career. You learn it once, you'll know it forever, and you'll be way better off for it. Let's go to our next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, I'm deciding between Auth and Proton Auth. Are there any other two-factor authentication apps that the panel prefers?
And Jason Bache has a thought. Jason?
So there are commercial kind of push-based ones like Duo that, yes, can, display a code, but really are designed to, make a second device ding and, requiring a push notification. I'm not going to pay attention to any of those. What you're referring to is a protocol called OTP. And the way that I like to do this is, in fairness, this is Mac OS only, so this might not work for you. But OTP Auth, which I will put the link in chat for, is they do absolutely everything right when it comes to just simply taking the input of the nonce and using the right time-based code to reliably generate without dialing home or doing any telemetry or separate authentication or tracking. These people absolutely do it right. Personally, I use my password manager. I use Bitwarden to do this wherever possible because the last thing that I need when I'm logging into a site is one more thing to go click out of and then back into just to get into where I want to be.
Let's go to the next question.
From the QR code, Thom Ferguson in Charlotte says, heard this group has free tickets to see the IMAX premiere of the Spinal Tap 2. How do we sign up to get these tickets, and what do we have to do?
When I read this, I immediately thought of that little exercise we did in one of my college classes early as a freshman. And I don't know if you've ever done it, but they took 4 or 5 students and put them outside the room. And then one person in front of the class told a story to another person. Then that person left. The next person came in, and the person who was told it to the next person. And you just watched the story fall apart in area. There is a grain of truth in it that in the Discord for office hours, occasionally things like this come up, and we marshal a group of people to go do cool and fun things. You want to get in on those kind of things? Join our Discord, become a closer active member. But it is not as simple as, hey, we got free tickets to this. So I'm going to leave it there because there's no reason to go farther. But I will just say this is a wonderful group to our opportunities to do incredible things kind of with leading edge technology, and a great group of people to do them with. And move on to the next question.
Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida asks, is the OWC Thunderbolt 5 dock small enough for travel?
Gee, if only we had somebody who knew really well what
I don't know who you're talking, like, come on, Bill.
We're going right back to Jason, who happens to have just accepted a position with OWC and knows a lot about what's going on. Jason, what can you say?
The Thunderbolt 5 dock is slightly taller than the other docks. I'll put it up here on the screen. And it is a ginormous, like all the docks, it is an incredible thing for what it does. So if you were to take all of these ports or even half of these dongles and try to put them in a bag, the answer is positively it is better than every alternative if you need all the ports that it provides. That's going to be true for absolutely every dock. And the form factor, I mean, you're kind of talking to people who have to load lighting rigs into things. So, my answer is absolutely. And I do travel with an OWC dock because it is so much easier than having to track all the other things that I would, be using it to replace.
And I was looking around for it, but I also have an OWC travel dock, which is probably smaller, but does not have anywhere near the I/O capacity of that. So you really
it also doesn't do power delivery. That's the other thing is, you don't need the power brick when you're using a dock like that one.
All right, Mickey, you had some thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with what Jason said. Like, it's how do you word it? Small enough is relative, because Jason mentioned a small run and gun, like bare bones ENG audio kit. You're talking about like 40 to 60 kilos of check-in baggage. Narrative equipment package, we usually end up being like 400 to for about 400 kilos more or less of baggage for a portable narrative system with all the accessories and all that. So it would certainly be relative in my opinion. But if you want to decide for yourself, you can take a look at the specs within OWC's own website, and I believe it ends up being, where is it? There it is. Dimensions wise, so that's that in both metric and freedom units. So you can decide for yourself if that's fine for you.
Let's go to the next question.
Well, Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, what's a cheap, good, and best cage kit dummy battery and microphone for a Sony ZV-E10ii, and includes the link?
Boy, this is going to be a matter of opinion. Let me give you a little bit of my philosophy on some of the camera cage kits and the rest of that, which is I bought them for most of my cameras. I typically go with small rig, although I have some wooden camera accompaniments and a couple of other things from other manufacturers. I think they're really useful for that camera, but since I change cameras enough, and especially if you're talking about outfitting your phone with a cage, I always look at the fact that I'm probably going to be changing phones in a year or 2 or 3 or something like that. So I have probably 3 cage kits with old phones back there that I seldom use anymore. That doesn't mean that they're not good, but in each of these cases, I consider the purchasing of those accessories, the ecosystem that builds out a camera, just an investment. I kind of feel like it's a Section 179 IRS thing for America, where you just try to you don't depreciate it over a few years because it's probably only going to last for a short period of time. Mickey, what's your thought about this?
So yeah, regarding the what do you call this, cage kit, I plus one what the Bill mentioned, wooden camera. They make really good products. Other brands that I trust are Shape as well as Zacuto. They've been around for a long time. And also another brand, if you want to save a little bit of money, Tilta is also okay, not as good as build quality as like say something like wooden camera or Zacuto, but it's decent for the price. Regarding audio, you would want to get an XLR adapter for the ZV-E10. There's this one just fits on the hot shoe mount, or I think they call it technically the multi-interface mount is what they call that hot shoe that takes in their accessories. And then there's another model or option for it where it's a handle with the XLR inputs. For options for top mics on the ZV-10, it's a relatively small camera. It's pretty tiny. You'd want a pretty short microphone there so that you can avoid it from getting into your frame. So on the lower end, there's a Deity S-Mic 3S. It's a short shotgun from Deity microphones. If you want to step up a bit, there's the Sennheiser MKH50 Super Cardioid. Love the MKH50. Big fan of the sound. It also has a little bit of presence boost and like the higher, like about the 6K range, so that you can get a little bit tighter reach, or a little bit of clarity, I should say, in the typical vocal range. Or if you want to step up a bit, some people use mini CMIT as top mics for cameras. But of course, saying that, these are just top mics. These are mostly generally used just for like to capture general ambience. You're typically not gonna use this for actual speech or dialogue that will end up in your production. This is just to get like sort of a nat sound or ambient sound of your surroundings.
Oh yeah, my answer actually is just more of a global and generic answer here. I'm just reading just the first words in this is what's a cheap good, and already I just stop there because it's like, cheap, fast, good, pick two. And so I just kind of would encourage people, anyone who's trying to put any kind of production system together, be it mobile or an install situation, whatever it is, get as little as possible and make sure everything is the highest quality that you can get, and slowly build to that thing, because you're going to end up rebuying stuff. The components in these things in your cheap thing are literally like the same in your smoke detectors. It's the smoke detector wire in your ceiling. I mean, it's, so as you're going, don't load up your project relying on smoke detector wire and think you're going to go out and get some amazing thing. If the content is amazing, that's different. For me, content always is better than the production. The production doesn't really matter. It's about facilitating something that's worth making, in my approach at least. And so I just would encourage people to kind of put solid bricks of foundation where you go. They don't have to be insane, but get things that are not plastic cheap circuits, because it's just you can't guarantee that thing is going to do its job. You can kind of guarantee that it won't, almost. So that's just my 2 cents.
And we talked a good little bit about cage kits and microphones. Nobody had mentioned the dummy battery thing, so I just wanted to make a very quick comment about dummy batteries. It's one of the pain points that I've run into in this world where I'm using a DSLR behind my prompter and it's powered on every day, so I've got a dummy battery rig in it and I've got all this. That's one of the areas that I find least reliable about my current system, and I'd be careful about that. If you're going to do a dummy battery, my kind of preference is to go with the manufacturer's battery substitute rather than one of the many cheap knockoffs you can find online. Power, if you're doing something like a daily show, needs to be pretty solid, and I wouldn't mess around too much with that. That's my 2 cents. Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington asks, what are your thoughts on the latest Blackmagic announcements? Support for Apple ProRes RAW and the new Blackmagic Camera ProDock.
We're going with Courtney. Courtney.
Well, I saw this on the show yesterday on MacBreak Weekly, and they were talking about it. This is what it looks like. It's a little dock that plugs into the USB-C connector on the bottom of the iPhone 17 Pro Max. I think it only works on the Max. But a couple of curious things for it. It gives you an HDMI output of the video. It has a lockdown coaxial power connector, so you can hook up an external power supply to it to run your phone all day. It gives you a hub for 3 more USB-C connectors. But the interesting thing here is timecode in, so it now can record time-coded files in the ProRes formats, and it has a reference in, so it can gen-lock the phone. Now, why would you want to gen-lock a phone? And I started thinking about this, and I thought, one of the reasons to gen-lock a phone is to shoot stereo immersive video with 2 phones, because you need to gen-lock those 2 capture devices together so that they're in perfect sync with each other when they're capturing into their separate files. So maybe they did that so that they can use those phones to shoot immersive video for the Vision Pro. So you put 2 phones into a rig like this and you adjust the interocular distance between the 2, the same camera. That way you can use the same camera sensor on both. So that you don't have this thing like you're using the iPhone now for doing immersive, where it's taking 2 different resolution cameras and trying to match them, 2 different resolution chips. So you could use the same chip on both phones. You could gen-lock them together, and you could record ProRes files in sync with each other, 4K only. I think this supports only 4K. So you could record immersive video using the iPhone. Maybe they came out with this just for that. And they don't mention that because Blackmagic has a really expensive camera with 2 lenses on it for shooting immersive, that they don't want to discount the use of that. So maybe they didn't mention it for that reason. But I think you might be able to do it with this.
That's fascinating speculation. I think a lot of us were talking in the Apple thing. We did a second-ear experience, and there was a pretty big group of us watching everything they announced. And one of the topics that came up, excuse me, was how low-key lit the whole thing was. And we speculated, and I feel pretty strongly about it, that they just used an iPhone in one of their rigs. Now, we've seen, for shooting the whole thing, the whole keynote. In the past, we've seen that, and there's been some talk on the web about, well, yeah, if you have a huge grip crew and you're flying lights and you've got cranes and all this stuff, then putting an iPhone where the camera would otherwise be, that's not a very heavy lift. It looks like they didn't do any of that. It looks like they used virtually no additional lighting and just took the latest iPhone out in the field, mounted it on things, of course, but shot everything like that. And the lighting was very minimalistic. So that's an interesting take, Courtney. I hadn't thought about the stereo vision stuff. Blackmagic is, I can see, because Blackmagic does work closely with Apple. They have to, because they're symbiotic in terms of a lot of the equipment that people buy and use and want to use them together. So that's a fascinating idea. Jason, you had some thoughts.
Yeah, it's important to remember here that although they are large companies, both Blackmagic and Apple have a shared motive here, which is to kind of bust down the old school production pipelines. That's really kind of what they are both about for different reasons. Apple wants to take a phone and show professionals that this is a professional level device. And, to that end, this, which is, again, very neat device with Genlock and timecode in, I'm pretty sure is not something that will only and exclusively be available as the result of plugging into only this device. That said, it's hard to know because it was kind of this quiet one more thing. They made no mention of it until just bam, it was there, and then Blackmagic and Apple made mention of it very quickly. I'm excited, and I love the idea of being able to take a pickup shot and to genlock it. Like where's the bad thing?
Yeah, well, a lot of us who are old timers who've lived and died by genlock for decades in multi-camera shoots, it was really a sign of the fact that you'd moved out of the pony leagues and moved up into the serious players when you suddenly had to worry about house sync and blackburst and genlock and the rest of those enabling technologies. Courtney, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, I didn't mention it. It also has D to A and A to D on the audio inputs and outputs. So it gives you 3.5 millimeter stereo in and stereo. I think there's stereo in and stereo out. I didn't look exactly at the specifications. I don't even know if they're out yet. But it does have two separate 3.5 millimeter mini jacks for audio in and audio out. So it has to do D to A and A to D inside the converter here. To get in. So it gives you analog in and outs, and hopefully at line level, and a clean audio in and a clean audio out as well, so that you can feed it from, let's say, a separate audio recorder if you're doing double systems, so that you have reference on your video that you're recording in your iPhone.
Yeah, it just looks like the kind of device that Apple wanted for their shoots remotely, and that they talked to Blackmagic, and Blackmagic, yeah, we can do that for you. Jason?
I say this with as much love and respect as humanly possible. I will trust a Blackmagic A to D converter about as far as I can throw it.
Okay, we've heard those kind of things before. So anyway, we're moving on to the next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York asks, what did we learn, like, or dislike from the Apple event today?
Lots and lots of chatter today on all of my feeds about what was released yesterday. Jeff Cohen, what were your takes?
I'll go with a couple positives first, down to one of the most disappointing things that happened. So first, this was actually just mentioned as really a flyby comment, but when talking about the new iPhones, they mentioned again audio mix. I didn't go back to catch if anyone did, if they mentioned any improvements with it. I would hope, I would like to think, but this is kind of interesting, especially in relation to the question about recording audio at an event. So just real quick, Tom's guide will demo for anyone who hasn't seen it how this works exactly.
Edit, and then audio mix is going to be one of the features. And the idea is that you can cycle through different options in order to minimize background noise. So in frame is one of them. There's also cinematic if you want a little background noise in. There's also a studio option to make it sound like.
And so like some of the photography that we have nowadays, this lets you do that mixing and effects processing after the fact. So you just record your audio, and then with this audio mix feature, you can go back and decide how to tune it right on the phone. So that's kind of neat. The other thing that, as was discussed, but just to emphasize is, and even for the upcoming question, so genlock is part of the deal with the 17 Pro and Pro Max, of course. So it looks like you don't get that with either of the other two, but you do get this whole pipeline, including genlock. And then for one of the, no, I wasn't showing his seat genlock. And then the most disappointing thing is the absolute lack of mention of Apple Intelligence. I was completely sober at the end with my drinking game for mentioning AI and Apple Intelligence, and that fits with what we know and have heard on the news. I mean, a lot of the team has jumped ship. Meta has grabbed up a bunch of people from Apple as well as some of the other companies. So and then there's some news about the third-party vendors they're using to train and tag their chat thing that they're working on. So not a good sign for all this amazing Apple Intelligence we've been promised. So for now, your best bet is just connect it to your OpenAI account.
Jason Bache.
I just have to point out that there is this kind of tendency, and I'm certainly not immune from it, to very much like Apple products, and then very much crap on what I think is one of the best kind of pitch decks that we get to see and experience and look at every year. So first things first, the nighttime aerials specifically of Chicago were exquisite. I actually rewatched some of the event purely to see those visuals. I've seen a lot of aerial photography. I've seen a lot of nighttime aerial photography. It was spectacular. The other nice thing that I am very much looking forward to is that the sensors are ginormous. They are ginormously bigger. And the front sensor, which I don't really care for, but a lot of people do, is a 1-to-1 aspect ratio, which means portrait, landscape, the stabilization that you're able to achieve with just making the sensor larger are serious moves forward. So, again, I don't just want to say, yes, it's the best phone ever, and of course it's hyperbole bound and the whole 9 yards. That said, they make great stuff, and most of us use it.
Wonder if Instagram was ahead of its time with that 1-to-1 ratio. Courtney Gooden?
Well, one thing I learned is that Tim Cook is getting really bow-legged. Either that or it's barrel distortion in the wide-angle lens. It could be that, Tim. Go see your orthopedist, because if it's not the lens on the new iPhone with the barrel distortion, I think it's getting worse.
Maybe he's taken up show jumping. So who knows? Anyway, yeah, it was a fascinating thing. There were a lot of things that I'm still processing today. I saw yesterday that lack of overt key lighting of the presenters is something that I'm going to think about. And actually, until Jason mentioned it right there, I didn't think about it, but your point is incredibly well taken. If they're showing you that in low light, even landscape low light nighttime shots in cities is extraordinary on this camera, then you wouldn't want to pop somebody out 5 stops ahead of that and diminish the impact of the backgrounds. That was something I didn't think about after last night. I just wondered why they lit it that way, but sometimes Apple does that. They pull me out of a mindset that I've had for a long time and say, is there some sensible reason to do less key, more environmental lighting? That may be something I'll think about as I'm going forward. Next question.
Danny Grizzle in Longview, Texas asks, is the camera on the iPhone 17 Pro Max so awesome from a content creation standpoint that I should trade up my 6-month-old 16 Pro Max?
Courtney Gooden, what do you think?
If you've got a 16 Pro Max, I'd hang on to it for another year because it's rumored that Apple's going to be building a new camera sensor in conjunction with Samsung, another triple layer sensor similar to the Sony sensor, only better from Samsung in a factory that they're building in Texas. So to get by those awful tariffs that are going to be placed on them on the stuff coming from Japan. So maybe hold off. That's supposed to be rumored to come out in the iPhone 18. But you know what rumors are. You can't count on them until they're in the stores. So, but if you were to wait, you may be surprised. And then you can always go. And if you wait till the 18 and the new sensor doesn't turn out to be good or not as good as the old one, then you can always buy the 17 because it'll be cheaper when the 18 comes out.
Let's go to our next question. Oh, I'm sorry. No. Do not do that. Back in. I didn't say that. Jason Bache is up next. I'm sorry. I was checking on something on a future question.
Okay. So I've made my peace with the fact that more years than not, whether or not it is a good and sound financial decision, I like having and buying the newest iPhones. To me, this is as much a business expense as it is an expense that allows me to, when the not rumored but actually, new production related things come out, I don't have to wonder whether or not my phone is compatible with them because a lot of things are kind of targeting a mobile platform. So the answer is, I will, and for most people, probably not. But the question is, Danny, are you most people?
Jeff Cohen, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's really simple. First of all, to Courtney's point, whether or not they do that, next year's sensors will be better, and the sensors the year after will be better. So if you just are wondering about better photography or better quality video, I would say absolutely not. I would say only upgrade if you need any of the new Pro pipeline features that you can only get with the new phones. And just real quick, because I totally forgot, we have a little bit of time, it's adjacent. One of the coolest things that I forgot to mention, if it works, is the AirPods live language translation. That is pretty cool. I mean, we've obviously had live-ish translation on our phones. Google has the translation on their earbuds that, a handful of people in the world use, but live translation just with your AirPods is pretty doggone cool if it ends up working as advertised.
Yeah, that's one of the themes that I came away with. These phones are so powerful now, just as computers, that the ability to do this kind of computational magic on real-time signals is just stunning. Jason, you had another thought?
That is a true crowd pleaser, and it is worth iterating just how cool it is. That said, I went deep into the documentation yesterday, and my understanding of it is that you don't actually need AirPods Pro 3 in order to do that. The beta software, for example, for the current AirPods 2 and the AirPod 4 are currently supporting it. It could be that that's just beta, and yoink, they just kind of get rid of it because they had to test it. It will also undoubtedly, if you have an earlier version of the AirPods, destroy the battery. As far as I'm concerned, I think it will be an incredibly cool demo, and at the end of the day, this is coming from the guy who cannot use the voice transparency because when he walks his dog does bad things, and then he talks to the dog, and all the things that it's saying get turned down, and I'm like, no, I'm not talking to a person. I just have to say, don't do that to the dog. So, yeah, it's going to be cool. It's cool, and at the same time, we are very far from Star Trek.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to live with these tools. I run into this a lot because I have a 16 Pro Max that I use for video often. I've also kept my 14 Pro, and I find myself picking up the 14 sometimes when I'm shooting video outside because the screen on the 16 Pro Max is not as bright. Now, if I'm not outdoors in full sun, I love the screen on the 16 Pro Max. When I'm like watching a movie in bed or something like that, I think it's fabulous. So it's interesting to me that sometimes these little subtleties of performance in the various models, you kind of learn what you like, what your lifestyle is. If you don't stay in darkened rooms and watch a lot of content, maybe that doesn't matter to you at all. It probably wouldn't matter to me. But boy, I've been frustrated when I put my 16 Pro on something and took it to Comic-Con, for example, and I wanted to take a lot of stills, and I found it very difficult because I had to constantly try to shade my screen because I was often outdoors in the sun. And interesting little tidbits. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana asks, my daughter wants this is going to be divisive, wants a Bluetooth keyboard for a Windows PC in her classroom so she can control it from the back of the classroom. What model should I be buying her?
Let's just go through the panel. Jeff Cohen raised his hand first. Jeff?
Yeah, so aside from really the specific model, I can tell you that if I was a student in that classroom and that was the setup, it would be my mission to figure out what I needed at my desk to take control of that computer wirelessly. So you absolutely need to make sure that whatever you're getting has a good secure connection that is not easily intercepted. There's a couple, actually I was first looking at their secure keyboards, so Logitech has kind of their business keyboards, but you do probably want some kind of either combo keyboard and mouse, or perhaps even one that's integrated, because of course, if she's going to be sitting at the back of the classroom, she needs both pointer control and keyboard. And these are very common. So again, you run the risk that a kid brings one of those in. You can go completely the other direction, which is really get a secure keyboard that no one for sure is going to have with complete encryption and everything else. But at least be mindful when you're looking for models that, it's got a decent secure connection.
Jason Bache.
Okay, so classroom, what you want is not too expensive and incredibly versatile and pretty durable and versatile. So here's probably one of my very favorites. I will admit I am partial to Lenovo ThinkPad keyboards and just how incredibly good the feel is of these. I bought this a few weeks ago just because in run and gun, I end up needing to connect very quickly to a whole bunch of computers, and this does it really well. It has an on-off switch, which is really nice. It has Bluetooth as well as a tiny little dongle that will just automatically hook it in. It also has straight USB-C, and it has another switch that will do both Android and Windows. And it's inexpensive. So this, to me, the ThinkPad TrackPoint keyboard 2nd generation is the win.
Mackie CR.
Yeah, for me, I would recommend against using Bluetooth. If this is a computer that's run by the school, they may have restrictions on it, not allowing you to, control the Bluetooth preferences on it. I would go for a keyboard that uses like a standard RF little dongle that you plug in instead of Bluetooth. If this is just a use case where there are only certain occasions that you have to control it from the back of the class, say like if you're doing a keynote presentation and you only need it for that 15 minutes, and the rest of the time it's fine to use a standard keyboard that's at the front of the classroom, then what I would recommend is little tiny keyboards that you can find on Amazon. There's a specific company that I tend to use. I don't know how to pronounce their name, but it's spelled out as RII, I guess RI. They have these tiny little handheld keyboards that have little trackpads on them. They're not great trackpads. They're not great keyboards, but they're tiny little things that you can take to the back of the classroom. They have little standard RF dongles, usually 2.4 gigahertz dongles that you plug into the keyboard. It appears as a standard class compliant mouse and keyboard. So there's no anything you have to do with Bluetooth there. So if there's restrictions, then you're still fine. But yeah, I'd go that route instead of Bluetooth.
Courtney.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Mickey. The combo, I would go with a combo keyboard. I have tons of these little bitty keyboards. This is an ASIO, and this is a little bit larger, and this has a sensor over here in the corner that's a little camera, and you put your thumb on it, you move your thumb around, and it's like a touchpad, and then you have your mouse buttons over here. So your mouse is operated off this little sensor here, and this is an ASIO, A-Z-I-O. But one important thing, if you're going to be operating from the back of the room, and here's a keyboard that we use on set all the time, these Logitech K400s. It's one of those that uses an RF dongle, a 2.4 gigahertz RF dongle. But it gives you a really large touchpad here, plus a full-size keyboard that you can touch type on. So if that's important, if you're a fast touch typist, it's good to have a full-size keyboard with a touchpad that you can use for a mouse at the back. One thing you want to be able to do is extend, if it is Bluetooth, and this is for a Bluetooth extension, this is a high-power Bluetooth transceiver that plugs into a USB-A on your PC. I would get you a 15-foot USB extension, male to female USB-A, and either put this or the dongle that comes with the Logitech keyboard into the end of that, and put that little transceiver up high in the classroom, at the back of the classroom, mounted on the chalkboard or something, to get it up high above the heads of the students and all the desks that are in the room, because they're all going to have phones on them probably, or other type of 2.4 gigahertz pollution in that room. And getting that receiver transceiver up in the air above the heads and above the desks will increase your range, because it might be kind of dicey if you're at the back of the room using a Bluetooth keyboard 20 or 30 feet away from the receiver. So get the receiver up in the air, separate it using that USB extension.
Mickey, you want to come back in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add as well, those little keyboards that I recommended that are just, class compliant USB keyboards and mice. On the weekends, Roscoe, if you want to borrow them, you can use them with your 7 series, 6 series, 8 series mix-free recorders to enter metadata. And that's why I have a bunch of them. I plug them into my recorders. If I need to enter metadata really quick, I pull out that controller or that tiny little keyboard. Works great.
Jason, you wanted to pitch back in?
So this is not either or. It really does come down to what you mean by operate the computer. I love the thumb keyboards that Mickey's talking about. I believe the one that I got was the official Raspberry Pi, version of it, but it looks like a rebrand, and they last forever. The trackpad is good. You can do it with your thumb. If you're actually working on the computer instead of just needing to hit escape or right arrow, left arrow, of course it really just depends on how it's going to be operated. What I really liked about the one that I suggested is that yes, it does have a mouse, but it's that Lenovo mouse that is on the keyboard. It's that tiny little red dot, the track point. But you've got Bluetooth if you want it. You don't need it. You've got a connected dongle if you want it. You don't need it, and the battery life is insane. So yeah, it really just comes down to what really you meant by operating a computer.
We've been having fun with this for a while, but we're going to move on. I want to try to get to as many questions as we can before we run out of time here. So next question.
Ola in Kent asks, planning to upgrade from a Behringer XR18 to a wing rack mixer. Any thoughts to use the XR18 as a stage box for some monitors and IEMs? Any thoughts on how to do this?
Mickey and Chris are going to help us out. Mickey, go first.
Yeah, the XR18 doesn't really have much in terms of connectivity. It does have Ultranet output, which is the personal monitoring system that Behringer uses. But if you want to integrate an XR18 with a wing, you kind of have to run like a whole bunch of analog lines, which might as well just run the analog lines directly where they have to go to.
Chris.
All right. I've never actually really looked at either of these things, but I did just look it up. You can do it. The XR18 does not have the Stage Connect port that you need. So you essentially have to get something like a Clark & Technique DN4816U or something like that, and theoretically it's saying that you can connect these things that way. But remember, the XR18, this is like a really small standalone thing. So it's not intended to be something that is like modular and to add on, but it says that you can do it. So
let's go to our next question.
Rion Smith in Trinidad, West Indies, Trinidad and Tobago asks, VLZRT must have great technology on the audio side. Can we hear some of the great things about it?
Unfortunately, Rion, this is one of those days when the panel just isn't the VIzrt people. I know that Jeff Keithley and a bunch of other people use a lot of this. So on another panel, you probably get better response, but this one's not going to work today. So hang on to it. Remember your question. Bring it back another day. Next question.
Chris Sabato in Albany, Oregon asks, I'm looking for a single inexpensive powered speaker that takes a line level input for distributing the PA in a press box, something like the Mackie CR or the Presonus ERIS. But only I need a single speaker. Is there a better option?
Mickey's going to help you out. Mickey?
Yeah, I certainly would recommend against putting out a studio monitor in a press box, without like a metal grill in front of it, because it's
steel cage.
It's just gonna get mangled up. I would recommend getting like a small powered PA speaker. I have a whole bunch of Yamaha DBR series speakers. They're absolutely phenomenal for the price. They have them in 15-inch, 12-inch, and I believe 10-inch as well. really happy with them. I also have a bunch of K2 series active speakers from QSC. Let's see if there's a better photo of them. Kind of better photo-ish here. So yeah, active loudspeakers that are meant to be out, out there and in the elements and in the road and people possibly stepping on them. Though I'm wondering why you need to put out a PA speaker out in the press box. Typically, what you would want to send out, you would want to place there would be it's also called a press box, which is essentially just a distro, either mic level, line level, or a mixture of both. Usually, you would want them to be isolated outputs, but yeah, you typically throw a bunch of these there, depending on how many people from the press you're expecting. So this company, by the way, is called Audio Press Box. They're very popular across the globe. What I personally use is one from PSC called the Press Train. But yeah, you feed it a line level signal, and then it gives you, in this case, isolated outputs that the press can plug into, as opposed to just having a speaker there blaring at them.
Courtney?
Yeah, generally they frown anywhere you have open microphones. They kind of frown on having an open speaker. So, I would go the route of having a press box and having headphones for everyone. But if you do want a speaker to monitor something and they're not having live microphones, a cheap version of the things that Mickey was recommending, Behringer makes one that's a smaller speaker for about $83, the B105D, that has, I think it's got a variety of inputs on the front and the back. Let's see, where's the back? Come on back. There it is. So it does have an XLR through and a TRRS combo jack, XLR combo in. So that might work for you. It's cheap to try it. You have controls in the front that make it easy. I don't think it has built-in batteries. That's another thing you might look for, because a lot of them have built-in battery pack supply, so you don't have to have power for them if you want to use them for a couple hours.
We've passed 8 o'clock, and since we have a lot of people in the back end who have lives and need to get off to other things as well, we're going to end here. Thank you so much for participating today. As always, I love Audio Day. Though I've been around the production business for decades, I always learn stuff on Audio Day. So thank you to our experts on the panel. Without your input, this doesn't happen every time. You are critical to this, and I appreciate it, as are you, our viewers, our producers who ask the questions that drive the show every day. We thank you for your participation every bit as much as well. And to our incredible back-end crew, the folks who silently in the back enable this to happen every single day. We appreciate your being here. Our Talk Traversal today, if you had been going around to ask these questions to the individuals who had the answers, you would have traveled 31,000 miles, 50,000 kilometers, 246 million bananas for scale. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you for watching or listening.
Or tasting.
Or admiring our bananas. I don't know if they cut to the shot, but
Banana was very happy to have its close-up once again. It is building its selfie deck in advance of the new iPhone 17.
The Banana's portfolio must be... The Banana can boast, I appeared on hundreds of office hours programs over the last few years.
Viewed millions of times, most popular fruit on YouTube. Chris, hit me up on Discord when you have a sec.
All right. Everybody take care. Have a great Wednesday night.
Audio stuff.
Why not?
No, I
Have
know.
fun ordering your
Yes,
iPhones Friday. All right.
I'll be there one way or another.
And I'll be there too, so I think you're covered.
Good. It's been fun working with you all week, Jason.